Okay. Now we are going to go on to our chapter number 1 in the course, which is called Sales Management. Today we are going to talk about something called Sales Managers or Sales Management. So 2 things will be outlined in today's class. The first one, we are going to talk about something called Sales Management. Second one, we are going to talk about Sales Manager. Regarding the sales management, we are going to study something called that the sales management is a process rather than an incident. It is a process. What is the meaning of the process? We are going to talk about this later on. A second thing, we would like to have an information or introduction about the characteristics or traits which must be available in the personalities of the people who are working as sales managers. So these are the 2 major topics which hopefully we are going to finalize by the end of this semester. Let's begin with the first one. Now, today we are going to talk about something called interface. What's the meaning of interface? Interact. So we are talking about 2 kinds of interactions. The first interaction is going to happen under something called traditional buyer-seller. The word traditional, it is reminding us with the model which we talked about yesterday, transactional. So how is the transaction or the interaction is happening between the seller and the customer under the model which is called transactional or traditional. In addition, we are going to compare it with another kind of interface or interaction under the model which is called a relationship. But here we named it to be team, which refers to the same model. Somebody is going to say, but why we named it team? Because under the relationship model, we are looking at the customer as one of the members of the team. We are looking at the customer as one of the members of the working team. Now, let's talk about them in a very detailed way. I want you to look at this figure, focus on it, and look at the second figure. And I would like somebody to outline what are the major differences between the 2 figures. Can you figure it out? Can you figure it out? Haneen, go on.
In the transaction, there is a relation or opposite relationship between the salesperson and the customer. They always, the customer fight for lower price and the salesperson fight for higher price. But in the interactional, there is a complementary relation. They complete each other and they seek to have synergy and cooperation.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's interpret what Haneen said into a symbol or in a few words. Therefore, we are going to make this a small table. The table is going to be divided into 2 columns. The first column, we are going to talk about traditional, T and traditional, buyer, seller, interactive. The second one, we are going to talk about the buyer, seller, interactive team. As Haneen said, the first difference between the 2, look at the figure. The meeting between the supplier and the customer, it's very narrow and shallow. It's very narrow and, but why? Because look, the meeting is only in one point. This is the meeting point of interface. This point is a symbol. Symbol means rams for that the transaction or the deal between the seller and the supplier has completed, has finished. So if the deal is going to be finalized, this means the relationship will not be in effect or in force. It will vanish. But before the transaction, the same thing, we are not talking about any kind of relationship. As Haneen said, if you are going to look at this, we are talking about a triangle. The first triangle which reflects the supplier, and the second triangle which reflects the customer. But the meeting of the interface here, it isn't focusing on one point like this. We are talking about very wide relationship. Very wide relationship. Well, this relationship might consist of various components. Components of what? طلع deal or transaction. We called it here deal or transaction. But here we are talking about one type of relationship. But here we are talking about other types of relationship, including, look, collecting information. Look, advising. Look, consultation. Look, problem solving. Satisfaction. Invitation. Somebody is going to say, what is the meaning of invitation? Inviting our customer to various occasions, like trips, journals, offers, or whatever. So all these things are what? All these incidents or all these occasions, they are outlined through the line of the relationship of the interface. But here, we are only talking about one specific, narrow, shallow relationship, which means the relationship will happen under a moment. This moment reflects the transaction or the deal. So if we are going to summarize what we have just said in this table, we are going to write the following. First, the relationship here is very short. It's temporally. But here we are talking about long relationship. Also, we are talking about permanent relationship. Here we are talking about, look, narrow relationship. Here, very wide. Okay, now, what else? Also in the traditional relationship, we are talking about a momental or momentum. Momentum, it comes from moment. لحظة. But this one, it is what? Sustainable. So this is the difference between the interface under the traditional buyer-seller interface and the buyer-seller interface team. This is briefly the differences. In addition, we are going to talk about the type of the relationship. Here we are going to add one word, transaction or deal. But here we are going to talk about all these things: advising, problem solving, collecting information, providing offers, providing information, and so on and so on. Because of this, we said this is very wide, but this is very narrow. Any question, any comments about this? In the midterm exam, you might have a challenge regarding this issue. For example, I might ask you, explain briefly or describe briefly the relationship or the interface which might come as a result of buyer-seller interface or buyer-seller interface team. This is one of the possible questions. Once again, explain briefly the types of the relationships which might come as a result of traditional buyer-seller interface or buyer-seller interface team. This is one of the possible questions. I think now it is understandable. Any question, any comments about this? But let's give example so that the theory which we are talking about is going to be stuck in your mind, not in your memory. In your mind, not in your memory. As we said, we do not want memorization. Now listen. Imagine one or somebody from you would like to buy a laptop. He went to a store in Gaza. We asked the seller the following questions. What is the price of this laptop? Where was it manufactured? What are the raw materials which are used in manufacturing? What is the insurance license or warranty? Is there a replacement parts? Are you making maintenance? And so on and so on and so on. So this person, who is you, asked many questions for the seller. Well, the seller was able to answer all these questions smoothly and confidently. After you are going to finish the transaction and you are going to get the laptop in your hand and you will return back home, I want to ask you this simple question. If you were in another need for buying something related to IT or laptops or whatever. What is the possibility of returning back to deal with this seller once again?
Trust is high.
High. So Fatin, it might increase more than 80%.
Yes.
A probability of repeating the same experience with the same seller. But this is a scenario. Let's look at another scenario. The second scenario is the following. You want to buy a laptop. Once again, you ask several questions, but unfortunately, the seller wasn't able to answer any one of these questions except one question, the price. After you are going to return back home, what is the possibility that you are going to repeat the same experience with this seller? It might be less than 20%.
Yes.
So the first scenario is buyer-seller interface team example. The second scenario is traditional buyer-seller interface. Any question, any comments about this? Any question, any comments? Okay, move on, move. Now, let's talk about the sales management process. Look at here. We are talking about sales management process. The word process means we are not talking about incident. We are talking about process. Well, the process, it looks like the meal. If you are going to, or if you are about to prepare a meal for your family members, we cannot say, Wallahi, we are going to bring the salt, or salt is going to be the meal. But why? Because salt is one component. But do we need other components? Of course. You need tomato, vegetables, etc. The same thing with the process of the sales management. Process of sales management has various components. The first component is the following. We have to focus on the big picture. This means don't think now of your bucket. Don't think now of the profit only. If you are going to do that, this means you are a sales manager who is having short-sighted vision. Short-sighted vision. What's the meaning of this? Exactly. Fortune and profitability will come to you. But be patient. Look at the big picture. Not on a part from this picture, which is profitability. This is number one. Number two, roles of the sales force must be identified clearly. In other words, if you are going to make a sales team, remember, each member from this sales team, they must, or he or she, must have specific responsibilities, duties, and he or she must understand very well his or her red lines and white lines. Everything must be identified clearly. Now, after we are going to hire the staff members of the sales team, remember, if one of these staff members is going to be absent, this means the work of the sales will be checked. The work of the team or the sales team will be influenced negatively by the absence of one person. But simply why? Because as we said, each role is identified clearly. We are not hiring any person unless he or she has a specific work. He or she has a specific work. But if there isn't any specific work for any member, we do not need to hire him from the very beginning. Clear? Okay, let's go to the third thing in the sales. Also, we would like to talk about structuring sales force. All of you studied human resource management. Whenever we are going to talk about the word structuring, we are going to remember what? Exactly. Organizational chart. So the organizational chart is saying each member from the sales team know exactly what is the relationship which connects him or her with the rest members of the team. He or she knows exactly what is his title, responsibilities, and so on. Therefore, this thing must be clarified clearly by the sales management process. A fourth thing, building sales competencies. Competencies, as we said, it means abilities. So building sales teams' abilities or competences, it is going to happen through three things. First, read. Training. Next. And guidance. Training, coaching, and guidance. So this means the management of the sales team has a responsibility to upgrade the competences of the staff members through providing them with necessary training, coaching, and guidance. All these things must be delivered by the management to its working team member or members. Finally, also the process of the sales management is going to focus on leading the sales force. Well, let's stop here. Well, let's remind you. From now on, whenever we are going to use the word sales force, we are referring to sales staff members. The force is going to be achieved through whom? Working staff members. So in the midterm or in the final exam or even in your career in the future, whenever we are going to listen to the word sales force, we are referring to sales staff members or sales team. Okay? Now, whenever we are going to say or talking about leading, leading is one word, but in fact it is covering too many meanings under it. Leading means ability to put strategy, ability to put operation or operative plan. It means ability to put goals. It means ability to make evaluation, decisions, motivation, and so on. All these things are coming under what? Leading. So once again, we are saying sales management process has a responsibility to lead the sales force. As we said, the word lead is summarizing too many meanings. It's summarizing our ability or efforts to make a strategy, our ability to make operation plan, and our ability to make goals, and our ability to make evaluation, and our ability to make a decision, and etc., etc., etc. So all these things are summarized by one word, which is leading. Okay? Now stop here. Well, let's move to another thing. Well, this thing is very sensitive. If we are going to ask a very simple question. Now, in the previous slide, we were talking about the nature of the sales management process, management. Now we are going to talk about the manager. If we are going to talk about a sales force manager and his or her job focus, his or her job focus. Now, look at this. Spend little or no time directly in managing customer accounts. What do you understand from this sentence? What do you understand from it? Anybody? Not the sales manager.
The salesperson.
Exactly, not the sales manager. Exactly. So if I'm going to provide you, for example, with a question or with a sentence, I'm going to ask you, state whether the following statement is true or false. Sales manager should invest longer time in managing his or her customer accounts. True or false?
False.
Exactly false. Exactly false. Somebody is going to say, "Tab why?" Because this isn't the core job of the sales manager. This is the core job of the sales person. This is something very important. Now, another thing, the sales manager should focus on building or refining and staffing a selling team. The biggest challenge and the core job of the sales manager is to establish a sales team members. This is the biggest challenge. When we are saying Building and refining. Refining means this sales manager must be able to evaluate the performance and the skills of each staff members in the sales department. If this staff member is not qualified, directly he or she must be removed from the working sales team. But if he or she is qualified, this means this person must be included within the working sales team. Well, this is considered to be the biggest challenge or the core job of sales manager. Okay? In addition, contact with customers is largely non-selling. All the time, remember. Also, it is in the responsibility of the sales manager to pick up the telephone and to contact the customers. If the sales manager is going to do that, this is not a selling process. This isn't selling. Somebody is going to wonder or ask why. Once again, this isn't the core job of the sales manager. This is the responsibility of the salesperson. But somebody is going to say, but in this scenario, what is the responsibility of the sales manager? He or she must be able to provide development purposes for this salesperson. Or if you are going to ask what's the meaning of development, it includes everything from training, coaching, guidance, instruction, advising, and so on. And learning or teaching. Okay? Any question, any comments about this? Refining means filtering. To filter the staff members or the candidates. If he is qualified or if she is qualified, he or she will be within our team. If they are not, they will be removed. We are refining, we are filtering. So anyone who is suitable will be with us, and anyone who is unsuitable, he will be kicked out from the membership of the sales team. Okay?
Sales manager work with the salesperson, but salesperson work with the customer?
Yes. The contact persons for dealing with the customer is the salesperson. This isn't the responsibility or the core job of the sales manager. Exactly. You are right. Any question, any comments about this? Okay, move on. Now we are going to go to another part from our class. We are going to talk about the skill set which must be available in the character of the sales manager. If you are going to look here, you are going to find that skill number 1 is referring to the ability or to the willingness of the sales manager to be able to train and coach. You are the brain. You are the think tank for the other members of the sales team. Second, the sales manager must have a willingness to make joint sales calls. When we are saying make joint sales calls, what does it mean? Okay, also what does it mean? Joint sales call. This means the sales call must be organized according to strategy. Our sales team members are going to understand what they are doing, and they will communicate and provide and deliver the customers one unified message. When we are saying one unified message, this means if Farah is a member in the sales team and if Arij is another member, this means Rafah should not talk to me with a message that is different from the message which is uttered by Arij. The message must be unified. The goal must be shared. Everything must be in common. But if we are going to talk about messages which are not unified, messages which are having different ideas or thoughts or offers, this means this is going to harm our sales company. Exactly, controller and leading and informing them from advance or in advance what is our message which we need to inform the customers. Exactly. Okay? A third, ability to direct and control others. Also, if you are a sales manager, you must be able to direct or to manage the other working staff members and also to control their behaviors. Or let's give example, and I'm going to provide you with a scenario or with a situation where I want you to think of it as a sales manager. Okay? The situation is the following. Imagine you are a sales manager for a company which is located in Gaza City. And you are about to send a salesperson or a sales representative to Rafah market in the south. This salesperson asked for a permission to take a car from the company so that he is going to use it to reach Rafah market. How you are going to control the behavior of this sales representatives and be sure that this person went directly to the targeted customers in Rafah market? Imagine he has a mother-in-law in Al-Maghazi or in Nusayrat or Khan Yunis. How you are going to be sure that this salesperson isn't going to take the car and have lunch or breakfast with his mother-in-law before going back to the customer in Rafah market? How you are going to be sure? Measuring the time and give me a complete answer, Hanin.
Measuring the time and exact, give him some 5 minutes that are for free.
And after that, what you are going to do to be sure that he is committed with the time? Exactly. All the time, all of us aware that if we would like to reach Rafah from Gaza, this might require us about 30 minutes by car. Of course, we have full information, the cell phone and the telephone of our customer in Rafah. You as a sales manager, you have a responsibility. Simply, you have to check that your sales representative or salesperson reach the customer on time by giving him a call after 30 minutes. To be sure that our salesperson is using the time for work and only for work, not for other personal issues. This is one of the tools. So this is the responsibility of the sales manager to control the behavior of the other sales staff member. Exactly. Okay? Move on. Also, sales manager must have something called profit mentality. All the time, yes, all the time remember, your work will be evaluated by the end of the year as a sales manager by how much you were able to gain for the company which you are working for. Therefore, all your strategies and the plans must be managed and founded according to this profit mentality. But look at the broader or the complete picture rather than on the profit alone. Finally, you must be initiative. When we are saying a sales manager must be initiative, this means the sales manager must be proactive rather than reactive. When we are saying proactive, this means you are going to be innovative. In other words, you are going to propose a new agenda, new ideas, new plans, new working programs. And you are not going to be imitators. What's the meaning of imitators? Exactly. You are not taking a complete instructions or orders and you are just implementing it or them. This isn't the work of the manager. The manager has to switch his brain or her brain. And he has to propose new ideas or thoughts. This is the working of the manager. Okay? So these are briefly the major or the summarized skill set which must be available in the character of sales manager. Any question, any comments about this? Move on. Let's have the first or the last part of this class. In the last part, we are going to talk about a simple model. This model is illustrating the management competencies or the management abilities which must be available in any sales department. This sales department, first of all, they or it must have strategic action competency. When we are saying strategic action, mean strategy, plan. What is our strategy? What is its own goal? What are its own objectives? What are the activities which we are going to do? What are the tools which we will use to achieve these goals and objectives? All these things must be identified from the very beginning. If you are not going to have a strategy, this means the sales manager is going to be like the blind driver who is driving a car. And what is going to happen for this blind driver? For sure, he is going to make an accident and he or she might pass away. Here, the same thing. All companies must formulate, must draw a strategy of sales, illustrating its goal, objectives, tools, activities, and etc. Second, we must be able to have a sales management effectiveness. What's the meaning of the word effectiveness? It is reminding us with time, effort, and cost. In other words, we must be able to do our work with the latest amount of time, cost, and effort. Also, we must be able to have something called self-management competences. Don't expect from others to lead or to manage you. Manage yourself. Manage yourself. And you have to learn how to manage yourself. Also, you must have a competency of technology. Well, technology is going to provide the sales staff members with cell phones, laptops, iPads, etc. All these modern technological equipments for communication and coordination and saving information and data. If you are not going to have the technology component, do you think we are going to do our work in a very nice and good way? We doubt it. We doubt it. Okay. Also, we must have something called the global perspective competency. If you are satisfied by covering the local markets, have a look on a broad market. Think globally and behave globally. Also, look at the coaching competency. As we said, sales management has a duty, has an obligation to provide all the working staff members with training, learning, guidance, and advising. Well, this is the meaning of coaching competency. Also, we have to make something called team building competency. In other words, we have to be very sensitive. What is the harmony which is going to connect among the members of the team members? For example, sometimes some person is hating another. Some person is having a difficulty in dealing with another one. Is it okay to include both members in one team? We do not recommend that. Well, this is the responsibility of the management of sales, to be able to create a harmonious team where each member is going to love and respect and coordinate and cooperate with one another. All these are competencies for a model for sales management competencies. Any question, any comments about today's class? Do you have any question? Do you have any comments? Okay, now I would like to ask a few questions before we are going to conclude. Well, I want you to summarize. What's your impression about the course, the content of the course, since it began 2 weeks ago? What is your impression about the course? Go on, yalla. What do you think of it? Do you think it is benefiting us, or it is just a theory, or whatever? Farah, in which terms? Be specific. Excellent. Excellent. Another one. What's your impression about the course so far? Another one. Nobody? That's fine. Okay, another question. Do you like the method of teaching? Yes. Or you would like to change it? We are going to change it, but not now. As we said, after a couple of weeks, I'm going to provide you with a full presentation. We are going to be our teacher, and we are going to be the audience or the students. Okay? In addition, as we said in the first class, we said we are going to provide you with a joint research group. This research group, they must be able, or as I said, the maximum members, or the maximum number of the member is 4. 1 isn't allowed, 2 is allowed, 3 is allowed, 4 is allowed. The minimal is 2. And the maximum is 4. Now, listen. From now on, I want you to think. I am going to provide you with a research topic about one of the Palestinian business organization which is involved heavily in sales. I want you to complete or to write a complete research about its strategy, plan, actions, behavior, in the Gaza market. This business company might be pharmacy, might be productive, might be service premise or organization. Pick whatever you would like to pick. But before you are going to write down, you must form the team. This is an assignment for the next class. In other words, the next class, I'm going to ask about the members of the team. واضح? Another thing, each team must be ready to offer a business organization which they are going to search it. Which they are going to search it. This is the assignments for the coming class. Any question and comments about this? Okay, see you next time. Thank you very much.